Welcome to the English Out Loud podcast, a podcast where I give you tips on enhancing your English communication. I want to make sure that you don't offend people. When you're speaking with them. I want to make sure that you can get your point across and that people can listen and understand quite well. This is obviously something mainly for people who speak English as a second language. Although, hey, if anybody else wants to listen who speaks English as a first language, go right ahead. You can hear about the silly things that we do. But today I don't want to speak so much about spoken English. Of course, I will give you some, tips on idiomatic expressions and whatnot. However, I want to talk a little about body language. Body language. I want to talk about what it means if you make certain expressions and certain signs to Americans. Because, well, for some people who aren't raised in American culture, I have seen people do things that an American would never think to do. Not that they're trying to offend somebody, but if an American were to do that, they would think to themselves, they're trying to express maybe something rude. And of course, that's not a message that you want to give off. So we're going to see what you can do about that. Got a couple of tips here for you. Well, let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is honestly, this is the most important one, so I'm going to bring it up first because, hey, you know what? If you don't listen to the rest of this, at least you hear this first point. And even if you just say, okay, I heard one point, that's enough for me. Well, trust me, this one is going to save you a little bit of trouble. Because it's on your hand, it is your middle finger, the finger in the middle of your hand, your third one, the longest. Now, you see, I have noticed people who come to Canada, America, wherever, will often use their middle finger to point at things because it's the longest finger. It makes total sense. It's the longest finger. You would think you would use it to point at things. When you do this, you are gravely offending Americans. The middle finger for an American, I can't exactly say what it means because, I like to keep it clean on the show. But the fact is, for an American, it's not a nice thing to see. If an American sees you brandishing your middle finger, they're going to be a little bit offended. They are going to think, whoa, okay, this person, they want to, maybe they want to fight. Maybe they want to tell me something to my face. I remember a few years ago, I was talking with some people. A couple of friends that I had made, they were East Asian. They kept on using their middle finger to point at things, to point at me, and I was a little offended. And these were very friendly guys. There was no problem. It's just in their culture, it didn't mean anything. In their culture, it doesn't mean a single thing. So in the United States, your middle finger, you want to, don't use it. Just, if you do use it, use it wisely if you need to. You can Google what it means. I can't tell you because it's rude, but it's not nice. However, your pointer finger, perfect for pointing. That's what Americans use to point. The pointing finger. Also known as the index finger. The one beside the thumb. You must never point at an American. I would highly advise you not to use your pointer finger to point at an American. Americans find it rude. If you walk up to somebody with your finger pointed at them, an American may take this in an aggressive way, as though you're accusing them of something, or as though, you're trying to identify them for somebody else, possibly. Americans don't like that. Americans want to, they don't want people pointing at them. They don't want to be pointed out. And Canadians neither, because, hey, well, I'm Canadian. But Canadians neither. We, in North America, just don't point at people with your finger. Unless you want to offend somebody. Or else unless it's absolutely necessary, to identify someone. But otherwise, pointing, no, I wouldn't suggest it. And the middle finger as well, keep it down. Keep it down. But you can point at things with your pointing finger. You can point at cars, point at whatever, just not people. People find it a little offensive. And if you do point at someone, somebody will come to you and they will ask, why are you pointing at me? They might say, hey, what's your problem? What's your problem? They might even say, you want to go? You want to go? Now that, if an American asks you, you want to go? Or if they say, go me, like, let's go. That means let's fight. That means like they are trying to get someone into a fight. Again, words that you don't want to hear. And as long as, you remain polite and you don't go pointing at people, you won't have anybody come up to you and say, you want to go? Not nice words to hear. Hey, then again, if you're somebody and you're in a tense situation, now you know what to say to Americans. You say, you want to go? Wouldn't suggest it. Another word, actually, there was a word that I said, brandishing. If you are brandishing your finger, brandishing. Brandishing is to be waving something around, to be, showing it off in a way for everybody to see. Brandishing. Okay, a few more tips. Let's see, what else? What else do people from my part of the world not like? We don't like people getting into our personal space. Americans literally call this their personal bubble. I think personal bubble, it's a little childish of a word, in my opinion. But people use it. People will say, stay out of my bubble. And it's like, okay, whatever. But the fact is, you want to give somebody, a little bit of space. How much space depends on your relationship with them. Typically, I'd say, maybe a meter, half a meter. But when you're meeting somebody, I understand that in some cultures, it's very normal to just go right up and talk to somebody directly in their face. And in some cultures, it's also normal to go up and give someone a hug, to give someone a kiss on the cheek. Well, you can imagine how uncomfortable this makes Americans. If, we have our personal bubble. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I started hanging out with Latino people. Maybe about 10 years ago. Started hanging out with a lot of people from Latin America. I really fell in love with the culture, the language, the food, of course. One day I went over to a friend's house, and this friend was living with his girlfriend, who was an attractive, young Latin American woman. As soon as I knocked on the door, she opened the door and she said, oh, buenas tardes, Patrick. And she gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And for me as a Canadian, I was stunned. I was thinking, your boyfriend's right there. He's a good friend of mine. What are you doing? Are you crazy? You're gonna get me killed. But no, he came right over and gave me a hug as well. He said, hey, come on in, grab something to eat, get warm. It was not an offensive thing at all in their culture. And that was, for me, an immense shock as a Canadian. I'm not saying you gotta change your culture or anything like that. I absolutely love these kinds of cultures where people get close. But just know that around Americans, you wanna keep your new friends comfortable, all right? You don't wanna freak them out. So give people a little bit of space at first, and then, see what their comfort level is. Like I'll notice in the Latino culture, a person will be sitting on the couch, and they will go and squish themselves right beside another person, even if there's more space on the couch. People are just close. That's how people are. However, if you do this in American culture, they're going to be a little bit confused. They're going to think you're coming on to them. They're going to think you're trying to flirt with them. Hey, there's a good expression, actually. Coming on to someone, trying to flirt with them, to get their attention. And so instead of coming up to an American and giving them a hug, you can do this with close friends, with family. Like I started doing this with Latinos, and then I would go and do it with other Canadians, and they thought I was crazy. They'd say, oh, watch out for Patrick, he's a hugger. And it's like, oh, no, I just, it's how I got used to hanging out with my friends. People hug each other. But anyway, with Canadians, with Americans, a handshake. honestly, I mean, I know these days they say you got to do other things. In the future, the regular, everyday kind of Canadian culture, handshake is the way to go. I mean, maybe, a pat on the shoulder. Yeah, maybe just a quick pat on the shoulder. That's a way to acknowledge someone. It's quick. It's not much. It's not offensive. However, never a pat on the head. That is very patronizing. A pat on the head is like, what your father would do to say, good boy. Or, it doesn't feel nice as an adult to be patted on the head. So, in the American culture, giving a little personal space to people, it's important. Now, there's another thing as well. That is one more thing I'd like to talk about today. Eye contact. Very important. Some people don't like it. Some people like it. In my opinion, and in my area where I grew up, it's very normal to make eye contact with someone when you're talking with them. Whether it's a man, a woman, whoever you're talking with, you look them directly in the eye because that's how you know that you have their attention. However, I've noticed in other cultures, particularly with women won't make eye contact. They'll look down, they'll look away. They will, they'll be talking to me, and definitely I've got their attention, but the look that they have will tell me, in my culture, that they're uncomfortable talking to me. And maybe it is. Maybe they're just like, who is this creepy guy? I don't know. But the fact is, I'm not trying to be a creepy guy. I'm just, sometimes trying to have a conversation. Just a tip for people, however you're comfortable talking to someone. But when you're speaking with Americans, it's seen as respectful to make eye contact. Seen as respectful that when you're speaking with people, you look them directly in the eye and you address them by their name. So that just about brings us to wrap things up for today. We're keeping it short. I apologize that this is a few days later than I would normally get things out, simply because, honestly, Thursday, I was like, I couldn't. I just had too much going on and couldn't do it. So what I've got to do is record these bad boys ahead of time, have them ready for Thursday so I can just post it up. But anyway, wonderful talking with you folks today. I will have still another 2 to come out this week, Tuesday and Thursday. Should be following my schedule better this week. Make sure to hit subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening on, because then you'll get informed as soon as I got something new posted. And I got some really good lighting. I just got to buy one more little prop. And then I'll be up on YouTube in no time. I'll tell you all about it. But if you don't find me on YouTube for now, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook, en.outloud. Check me out on there. You will most definitely, you'll find the kind of content that we got in here, except just the tips, So without all the blabbering coming out of me, it just gets straight to the good stuff. So Instagram, honestly, it's great because you got to add some things to learn passively. If you want to keep learning passively will fit just fine into your daily life. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful meal. If you're cooking, enjoy your meal. If you're driving, enjoy your drive. If you're walking in the snow or in the middle of the desert, enjoy your walk. Have a great day, and there are many more good things to come in the days to come. Have a good one.